All right, good afternoon. Uh, so, we have an AC50 motor, or AC35 motor, excuse me. AC50 was up here on the bench. Um, Motor's just sitting on the bench. I don't have it strapped down, so I have to be very, very careful with my throttle. And I needed to get this running, and I was having some trouble. The controller is a 1238 96 volt 550 amp controller, and so I can tell you right now, the motor just sitting, even though I've got it, it's not doing anything. There's actually, it is actually getting a little bit warm on the heat sink here, so I haven't had it turned off for a little bit, but I'm not doing a whole lot. I just needed to make sure that I had this thing working. So I was going to use this for my 12 volt battery, decided to use my 12 volt power source instead. That's where you hear in the background. And so anyway, trying to configure this thing, I was getting a lot of issues where these wires were flopping around when it would start, and then it would just go really slow. And what I found in the programming was the encoder was reversed. So I turned that off. Once I turned that off, this is what I now get. So I have to be very careful here. That right there is the regen kicking in and then kicking off right at the last. So I mean, the throttle is really touchy. It's a 3-pot throttle, and so it does work. So I am not complaining. It's nice, smooth. Man, this thing's going to have some power. This is going to go. The AC50 motor is going to go in my. I think I'm going to put it in my little red roadster and just have a single motor rather than the dual motor. Put the dual motor in my dune buggy, which we're putting together, and then I think I'm just going to get rid of all my other ones, and these are just going to be fun cars, and dune buggy will just be a really super fun car, maybe even set it up to take it down to the track. But for now, this is what I have, or I may put it in my bus. So I've been waffling on that for quite some time. So all my components are now working, and I now have that motor control. I want to put the AC50 back up on the bench. It is really heavy, so I'd have to get my lift out and bring it back up. I took it off the bench without the lift. Yeah, it's pretty heavy for one person, and kind of awkward right here. So if I really crank on it, I can throw this motor on the floor, so I don't want to have to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the parameter file here. I'm going to get the camera up close here in just a second. So I'm going to turn this off for just a moment. Okay, so now we're in the parameter section, and under motor, this is not the configuration or motor characterization. This is just under motor. Max speed 4,000 RPM, encoder direction, swap encoder direction, and that was turned on. And when that was turned on, I was getting all kinds of weird the wires were doing weird things, and it was getting a lot of current and making a lot of problems. As soon as I turned that off, this thing just jumped to life. Yeah, so that was the find, and that was the fix. So this is what it would be. Swap encoder. Let me move this up just a little bit here. So swap encoder direction over here. I turned it off. When I turned it off, the motor now runs. So now I'm going to do another test in the characterization. So characterization test here. So I'm going to do throttle enable, and I'll turn it on. And RPM, I'm going to go down to 500. And then I'm going to hit the throttle, and then I'm going to hit OK. Okay. I turn that off. All right. So this is what it's going to do during my motor characterization, or the throttle test. And so it's doing the same as it did before. So I'm going to turn it on. It takes a second. See the wires jiggle and then jump up. Then I'll turn it off, and then I can do the other direction. And you'll see it go the other direction. There it goes, set, and reverse direction. So that works. So that's good. So now I can turn the test enable off. And now I should be back on standard throttle. So after doing that, I have to turn it off and then turn it back on. So we'll turn it all back on. Now we're running no faults, because it creates a fault when you change the parameters. So you have to turn it off, turn it back on to set everything. So now I should be able to just tickle that throttle. Again. And that's what I want. So now we're at a point where I can actually put it in the car, and I have all my wires, I know where they belong, and it's a very basic setup. A few extra things that I can hook to it and get it going. And so we're just going to do off throttle regen rather than brake regen at the moment. Once it's in the car, then we'll test brake regen, because I have all the stuff necessary to implement that. So just wanted to show you that everything is now working, and I'm going to upload to my Google a parameter file for this particular controller. So this particular controller is the Curtis 1238 96 volt 550 amp controller. And we'll just turn this off so it can cool down. And turn power supply off so it's not so noisy. And this just has the Curtis software. And it does have VCL. This is with VCL off. So I still have to find out about VCL, what it does, all that stuff. But for the basic stuff, we could set this up and run a vehicle with it at this point. So this is what I was after: basic setup, this is how it needs to be configured. I should be able to walk out of the gate. Now, just a caveat on this particular controller, I did get this controller from someone else who was using it and playing with it with a different type of induction motor, not the AC 35s or AC 50s. And so regular induction motors will work, any of them, with this particular controller. Just got to configure it. So I'm happy with what I got, and we're ready to rock and roll. I think next step is get the adapter plate on and get one of these guys mounted into the car and see if we can move a car. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks.